TDX has one of the most brutal updates I have ever seen in any game. So brutal that when I first got to Hidden Wave, it actually intimidated me. Not only were the boss fights chaotic, but the cutscene was heartbreaking, seeing someone so innocent just get pushed down to be transformed. This cutscene was sad, but also important. It answers some questions while also giving us more, but that's not all. We have secret documents about forge industry and a new company called MiliCorp selling their stuff to cults? And we got an official demonic Calamity language. Huh. Let's get into it. I love Nightmare. When Nightmare released, I had a lot of fun playing it, and I still have fun playing it to this day. The Secret Wave, at first I had mixed feelings about it because the time that the cutscene was released, it was while I was in school. And I wish I could have been there to solve the puzzle, but by the time I finished school, it was already solved. However, the Hidden Wave itself weighed way more than my mixed feelings about it. The effects, the stakes, the chaos, it just makes it so exciting for me to play. But with the Nightmare update comes with lore. A lot of lore. So let me get you on the story. The scene takes place on GDA's ship where Advisor and his workers are currently finding the location of Dr. Xenon. Eventually, they have a signal, and after a big consideration, Advisor decides to go to the latest location to investigate. But it actually was a trap set by Dr. Xenon to send her entire army to Earth, and it is your job to defend your region with General Leah, who will be helping you while Advisor is coming back from his trip. Once you beat Nightmare and Emperor starts a beacon and self-destructs to summon the Calamity entities. The main point of Dr. Xenon's invasion was to weaken the GDA with all the creations that she has, and call the Calamity to finally end the GDA. This was sort of a recreation of what happened in Endless, where Dr. Xenon decided to raid the GDA, and when Apex Predator self-destructed, she accidentally attracted the Calamity to their world. Now with Emperor, who undeniably wields so much more Calamity energy, you can imagine how many entities it would attract, and rightfully so. Before we get into the deep stuff, let's start with the mode itself. Throughout the mode, you will see many new enemies, each of them with Calamity sources. There is not a singular enemy in this mode that does not use it. General Leah says that Xenon has further harnessed the Calamity energy and notices that some enemies no longer explode when overheating. However, for enemies like Alpha Predator, he rips out his core and crushes it so he doesn't explode from the inside. Dr. Xenon learned that there isn't really a remedy to keep the source from exploding if the source gets too overheated, as seen by Mark II Plus, Alpha Predator, and many others. The source must be removed from the machine before it explodes and destroys the mech entirely. This is based on how much energy each enemy uses. For any enemies that use simple abilities, the energy can handle without overheating, but for those who use heavy energy like Alpha Predator, they have a failsafe for when the core gets too heated. They remove the core from their chest to keep operating with backup energy. This failsafe is necessary for those who really hold value to the army compared to weaker enemies that don't really have the same purpose or effect to attack, since Xenon has experience with reviving the dead enemies and can easily resurrect them. Speaking of the overheating issue, there was also some details about Apex Predator 2 about his explosion. Said by General Leah, when Apex Predator fought and died, the source explosion was strong enough to attract a Calamity, though they're not 100% sure that it was the main cause of Calamity raiding the Earth. We've already been shown time and time again the power of the Calamity can cause grand explosions if they aren't handled correctly or safely. But now Dr. Xenon has learned from her own failed eradicators to try to save her creations to keep fighting as long as possible. You've probably already seen General Leah, but there are some interesting details about her character, but also the shield tower. If you look closely at Leah's eye, she has a scar, and I do want to guess Leah is part of the European division and got this scar by Mark I combat, with the way that she explains about the shield tower later. Advisor during the Endless run mentions that Mark I combat wiped out the European division, and Leah also mentioned this while bringing up that they made a counter to Mark I combat, the shield tower. Both the shield tower and Mark I combat have the same shield system like the other robots, so I think it's safe to say when Mark I combat tried to run away but blew up into pieces, they took a shield technology and implemented it into the shield tower itself and made it where it can benefit towers around it. Matter of fact, there's a little bit of lore for each Nightmare Tower. For Refractor, it combines both the Calamity and Void power sources to create a new powerful energy. War Machine has been worked on for years and finally has been deployed. Behemoth, rumored to be used in the Awakened Invasion, is also now deployed. This was a reference with John's line about the Twitching Vials. It actually is pretty interesting that John decided to implement some lore into each Nightmare Tower than to just add these special towers for no particular reason lore-wise. Now, since some new maps came out, I think it's time to explore them. The gun map is a facility of Forge Industries, and the map has a giant gun mech. Now, that isn't the only thing, because there are 3 notes. So far, I can only read 2 out of 3, because the third one is small. Subject, Commission GDA, Ultimate Neutralizer, Project Gun. This letter formally commissions Forge IND for the immediate design, fabrication, and initial testing of one large heavy mobile weapon platform, Project Gun. Key deliverables include comprehensive design package and simulation results, design review required, fabrication of one functional prototype, bi-weekly progress reports and on-site inspections mandated. Bi-weekly progress reports and on-site inspections mandated. Initial field testing at Redacted conducted jointly. Fixed budget is... okay, they don't want to show how much money they be spending, but I can tell that's at least 3-0. This paper shows the creation of gun going through the process of design, fabrication, and testing. This was in 2028, but I have no idea what year this is now. Considering the budget is like up to billions or trillions, this project would have taken up to 3 to 4 years for it to even finish the 2 steps, because in the second note, okay, I actually can't read that. But judging by the amount of screenshots I was able to get, I got the conclusion that Gun is having some technical difficulties during this time, like radiation seeping. Again, I couldn't get the full message because it's so freaking little! But anyway, this was a message to the GDA from Forge Industries saying that the gun mech is experiencing technical difficulties. I couldn't grab anything else, but I assume that the end says to remake the mech. The third note, which is actually readable, and it is by far the most interesting. It is from the company MiliCorp Incorporated. Forge IND, Acquisition of MiliCorp Incorporated Agreement. All assets belonging to the organization MiliCorp are to be relocated to Forge Industries and its subsidiaries. Contractual breaches between Forge and Global Defense Agency have resulted in the absolvement of MiliCorp, of which includes, here's the big one, the sales and marketing of interstellar and foreign tech to private groups and cults. Let's take a step back for a moment. On the top, we can see Forge IND acquisition of MiliCorp, and by understanding this, you will know that Forge Industries bought MiliCorp, meaning that MiliCorp is one of those smaller factions that is part of Forge IND. MiliCorp is a company that made this document to send all of their own assets to Forge IND, and because of the contractual breach between the GDA and Forge IND, that means that MiliCorp, a company who was accused of marketing products to groups and cults, was free of guilt. But that doesn't mean nobody sold anything. The only times we have seen cults in the game were the Awakened cult, and we can clearly see that the Calamity utilizes tanks and forces that are robotic and similar to ours. While yes, some are revived pieces of old bosses like Mark II and Apex Predator, others like tanks, dreadnoughts, and maybe even Wretched, they all have robot parts. Someone is obviously still selling their products to these cults. But I think I know why Forge may have done this. They started the gun project in 2028, and both the GDA and Forge IND started production of it. However, because of how much it would cost and how the gun mech has issues like seeping radiation, Forge IND had to make money somehow to finish this project. So they started selling some of their products to some private groups and even got desperate to sell it to cults to make a little extra money. Could the private groups be Xenon? Who knows, which pretty surprising. But there's still one more question. Why would MiliCorp send their supplies back to Forge IND if they knew Forge broke the contract between them and the GDA? Well, I didn't show you the full image. Don't trust it. What does this mean? I honestly think that this could be many different reasons, but whoever read and wrote on this document knew that something is wrong in this message. MiliCorp is the company that made this document to send all of their own assets to Forge IND. But clearly someone in Forge IND knew that this document was lying, but from all the details we have, that's all I could get at least from this. A guess that I have is that Xenon was part of Forge IND and made MiliCorp send their supply to her so she can fully leave the GDA in the past. Remember when we figured out the puzzle? Well, there is a new language that we find a lot. Calamity writing. There isn't really much of a way to read this, but we do have another way to read it. In the new song, we get a lot of lyrics of the language. However, translating gets this. And I really wanted to figure this language out until GJ posted a little lore drop. So the context of this entire message is when the GDA was figuring out the Calamity writing on the walls and figured out some of the words and wrote them down. And this is all they could study before the initial shutdown, which I assume is when GDA found out that Xenon sacrificed Mallerie. It could also be that message that Mallerie found in the cave, but we're not so sure, but we're gonna take that guess. We've gotten some definitions on how the language works and some sentence examples to understand each word, including the title of Zara Kairasgor, the goddess of wrath-shadowed calamity. With all these examples, I think it's time to figure out what the video says. Well, not everything, unfortunately. The problem is that some words you can't figure out, and we would have to get the definition of each one, and for right now we have like, I don't know, 6, 7. But I was able to get one line, and it is this. Do I believe that these are the exact lyrics? No, but by the definitions that the GDA has given us, this is the closest that I could get, and you can obviously throw any words around to make it fit into what you believe. One thing I have also found is that in the lore drop they have 4 examples, the examples being what they found in the cave. I do think that they should expand more on this language because it is honestly really intriguing, at least in my own opinion, to actually solve this. Now, Emperor, the main guy. He is the most powerful entity we have ever seen, and it is time to understand what he is. Emperor by the end has his inner speech and then spawns a beacon with so much power that he self-destructs and brings Nemesis. His attacks are linked in with the Awakened and the Void being able to corrupt towers, levitate, and attack the base. He actually goes further and can manipulate time with the grasp of his hands. And he can talk? From what I can tell, Emperor isn't really different from making sounds like the other Eradicators, but at certain times he has his own voice lines for when he attacks or gets hurt, even having his own speech. Could other Eradicators talk? We know that they can make noises and form small words. We can tell from the ex-scientist conversation with Xenon that you don't need the amount of power the Eradicators have to even speak. And we've been shown time and time again that zombies were able to chant and form words, but Emperor is shown as the most intelligent Eradicator, being able to have his own speech. However, one question still remains. Is Dr. Xenon in the suit? No, I don't believe so, but I do think there is a way that she is included in this boss fight. In the lobby, you can find a note. It is based on the scrapped Encore Eradicator, but now part of the lore. I'm not going to read this entire thing, but what it talks about is that this Eradicator named Designation Helios, or Project Aegis, is an Emperor-class Eradicator and it was destroyed in North America in the stratosphere or in the air. Forge IND signed a contract to collaborate with the GDA research facility to reverse engineer it to understand the power behind it and to understand its artificial intelligence. This Eradicator is set in an Emperor class, and I'm assuming that the way this Eradicator used the Calamity energy is similar to how the Emperor uses his own source. However, one small thing about this model is that it lacks a host, compared to the other Eradicators who actually do have one. This could mean that Dr. Xenon can have Eradicators without hosts inside of them, but chooses not to. But why is this connected to the Emperor? Xenon can still technically control robot Eradicators from far away, and it shouldn't be that hard judging their technology. It is time to talk about the cutscene. So, Dr. Mallerie and Xenon go into the Calamity Cave while Xenon lures Mallerie to get sacrificed. But let's look into it more. When Xenon and Mallerie argue, she says something interesting.
Of course I trust you. I just need one more. One more?
But then, if we continue, Mallerie says this.
Is this... Don't we have enough as it is? We don't need any more, Xenon. Please, just...
When I first saw this, I thought she was referring to the Calamity crystals. You know, sacrifice someone to gain power. But that wouldn't make sense with what Xenon said. I just need one more crystal? And even then, she always gets more in the future. Not like this sacrifice gave her unlimited crystals. That would not only be stupid, but contradicting to the story. But I think I know what's going on. If you remember in Christmas 2024, Dr. Xenon refers to a him character twice, and this could be her attempt to bring him back by sacrificing people to Calamity. Remember how crazy she has gotten. Mallerie thinks at first that she's trying to get more crystals, but catches on that this is where people get sacrificed. Well, yeah, she hasn't been in that cave before. Mallerie was always knowledgeable about dimensions like Calamity, and always eager to learn about other dimensions like Void. It could be that she learned that the room she was taken to was the ideal room for a sacrifice, given the statues and symbols in the pit. She thinks that Xenon is getting really desperate and tries to calm her down, but fails to do so in this fight. Have you tried asking advisor? Why was Dr. Xenon so angry at this line? She literally kicked Mallerie so aggressive in this scene. She tries to back away, but after that line, she forcefully kicks her down? I think something terrible happened between Xenon and advisor. But then, once she's dropped down, transformed, and dead, Xenon stands there, shocked by what she has done. Tears start to form. Then someone appears. But for Mallerie, it's different. She's soon represented as the goddess of vengeance. But why? There were many others who were sacrificed before her, and there will be a ton more that could have been betrayed, knowing how long the Calamity has been around. But why is she chosen as the leader? What if Mallerie wasn't just a regular sacrifice, but a prophecy for the Calamity? In the map finality, you get a poem. The general represents the king of hell, telling his armies to listen to the voices who were born in hell, because their teachings will save them and make them rise. But alas, the Duchess, Mallerie, wanted to overpower all to commune with us, wanted to share deep thoughts, especially with how she was betrayed. And the demons do so, since they say for the devotion of the servant, pure of heart, they shall grant what she seeks. This is pictured as Mallerie because of her pure heart, and throughout many banners, she seeks vengeance because it has been granted by the leaders to be held as the higher one. Then they ask who lies with full guilt, who lies with some, and who lies with none. The fault lies with Xenon because she was the one who made the sacrifice. Some of it falls under the GDA because I assume they're trying to cover this up, and none is Mallerie. To continue this, we have to bring up the Calamity language again. In this timeline, they showed some of the writing language in the walls before the whole thing was shut down, most likely because of the secrets of the sacrifice coming out. If this encrypted message was written before Mallerie's death, then that means it would be a major prediction or prophecy. I would rather say that the writing on the wall was before she got sacrificed. I'll explain why, by explaining the scene with Xenon and Void. Since Mallerie was just talking about the Void's dimension, maybe if Mallerie was still alive to explain Void, we could have gotten details about what he could really do. Not only that, but in Tower Battle's Nightmare, we get information that Void has talked with Xenon, proving that it is more likely to be Void than it is Awakened or any other being. Once Void appears, he knows what the Calamity says about the future. Void is no unintelligent being. He knows very well about the Calamity. He even knows that once the GDA gets a big hold onto these Calamity crystals, it will soon be over. He even expresses that even if he dies, the GDA will soon be no more. Void explains to Xenon that soon the Duchess will rise, fulfilling the message of the poem, and be granted what she will seek. But Void tells her that if she helps him, he will be able to bring back the one she wishes the most. At least that's what I believe. She reluctantly takes the deal, but when returning, she scratches off Mallory's eyes to never recognize her again. But soon she tries to save her until Endless Mode. That's when she saw her again and she's scared and doesn't want to look at what she's done in the past. After learning about Apex Predator's explosion being able to attract a powerful being, and seeing how powerful the Calamity faction is, and after some key major events, she decides to bring them back, including the one she hurt the most, fulfilling the prophecy. Of course, this fails and we kill her, but will Mallerie ever come back? Who knows? Maybe we'll get more detail in the Halloween event. But that is the end.